Yeah, my name is Dan Fisher, and excuse me. I'm part of the organ restoration team. I'm representing them today. And thank you all for being here, and I really appreciate your interest in learning more about this organ. And so today we're going to explore the surprising complexity of this amazing and ingenious and remarkable instrument. And so I'm going to be giving you a virtual tour of it, and we'll be talking about some of the things that we need to do to maintain and how we're moving forward. But music has been a very important part of Hope Church community for a long, long time, and it still is today. And of course, the organ is a very key part of that. So today we're going to talk about an introduction from the Capital Campaign team and also the organ team, Hope Music and Hope Church Music and the organ and what it means to us, and a guided tour. It's going to be a lot of fun of the organ, and talk about organ restoration items, and then what we're doing on our project to restore the organ. Okay. So first, I'd like to introduce Lois Mawson, who is representing the Capital Campaign team. Lois, all yours.
Also known as Lowe's Mason.
Lois Mawson.
Good morning. I do represent the Capital Campaign team because our intrepid chair is continuing to snowbird. He'll be back by the end of the month, this month, I believe. But I just want to set the context a little bit because this is one of a number of projects that have been part of the Sustaining Hope Capital Campaign that's been underway for a surprisingly short time, actually. So the members of the committee, some of them are in the room here, but I want to mention all of the names because any of us are available for questions or conversation about the Capital Campaign. Paul Elzinga, Dan Fisher, Kay Hubbard, Bob Jordan, me, Sam Martin, Claire Rumsa, and then both Jill and Gordon meet with us regularly to stay in tune with the organization. As I said, we launched this campaign only about a year and a half ago, and we have made amazing progress both in the projects that have been completed or have gained momentum and in funding the work as we've gone. The goal that we set was $1.3 million, and we've raised enough of that to continue with projects that are already in the works. Given gifts and pledges received to date, we only need about $310,000 more to achieve the goal. Because we've been able to fund the projects that are underway and to self-fund for cash flow over the next couple of phases of work, we're able to extend our pledging time frame through December of 2025. With that fundraising timeline, we'll still be able to fund the organ restoration and plan ahead for needs that we already know are coming to the facilities fund. We've achieved 76% of our goal, and as the Capital Campaign team, we are confident that we can get there to the complete goal with your help, whether or not you've pledged already to the campaign. We'll share more information at the April 30 congregational meeting, so we hope that you're planning to attend that. And in the meantime, as I said, any of the Capital Campaign team members are willing and eager to talk with you about the progress thus far and what still lies ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. All right, I'd like to introduce to you our organ renovation team. We started this team in August of 2022, and we have a great team with a lot of different skills coming in, and I'm really happy with the progress that we've made. But it includes Rhonda Edgington. Of course, you all know Rhonda, our amazing organist and music director. Trevor Dodd, who you don't know, but he's sitting right here. This is Trevor. Trevor is an engineer and music guy, and he is an organ expert and has been doing organ renovation and build and stuff. He's got 10 years experience behind him, but he is just an amazing person to have on the team. I don't know what we do without him. Paul Elzinga, of course, you know Paul, and just brings a lot of engineering experience and working with contractors and other things, and really cherish having Paul on the team. Gordon Wiersma, bringing the Hope Church perspective from a 10,000-foot view, and then myself. And then our mission is to evaluate the condition of our organ develop a renovation plan, including scope of work and budget and schedule, and finding a capable contractor to do the renovation for us, and also implementing the proposed renovation plan. And our goals are to, first, ready the organ for another 50 years of reliable service. And the second is to make modest tonal improvements to make optimal use of the organ's resources. And we're going to talk more about those as we move on. So Rhonda's going to talk about some of the importance of, about the history of the organ, first of all, and the importance of the organ at Hope Church. And she's not here as her role as music director. She's got some other stuff to do, as always. But she did leave us this nice little video. So, Rhonda, it's all yours.
Hi, this is Rhonda. I'm coming to you live from the organ here at Hope Church, and I want to talk a little bit about the history of this organ as well as the present and the hopeful future. And I'm using one of my big resources is this wonderful book by Judy Parr about the history of Hope Church. So I want to show you some pictures and talk a little bit about what we have had in the past, and I think that informs how we think about the future. You see this wonderful picture here. This is from 1901, and it was, the text said that this is a handsome pipe organ, one of Kimball's best creations. Kimball was a very famous American organ builder at the turn of the century. And the pipes are ornamented with pink, green trimmed in gilt and gold. And if you look really closely, you can see that there is stenciling on the pipes. And that was kind of all the rage at the turn of the century for organ pipes. This organ was paid for by the Ladies' Aid Society. They gathered $2,400 for this first instrument. And the console, I don't think you can see from here, but it's sitting right in the center because back at that time you needed a direct mechanical action between the keyboard and the pipes. So in 1930, they needed to repair and rebuild and electrify the instrument. They spent $6,000 during the height of the Great Depression to do so. And one thing that I think is really interesting is there was the question of whether they should also enlarge the instrument, add some pipes and stops. That would have cost them $330. And this was voted down by one vote, despite the fact that Elder John B. Nykirk pleaded that those additions would greatly improve the organ and make it on par with the organ at Third Reformed Church. So there's maybe a little bit of competition there, right? Now in 1945, if you look at this picture, you can see that there's now no stenciling on the pipes. Stenciling apparently was out of fashion, so they got rid of that. The console, if you can, you might need to look at this up yourself, but the console is still sitting right here in the front, right down in front. So that was 1945. Somewhere around 1946 or 1947, the organ was rebuilt and the console was relocated. And the Last Supper carving that we now know was added. So I'm sure that's why the console had to be removed, couldn't be there in the center. We have a picture from the late 50s. Now, this is fascinating because it's an entirely different look on the front. You'll notice there's no visible pipes. That doesn't mean the pipes aren't there. They're just in these chambers. You can see the openings here, and these are, so they're behind these walls. Here you see the Last Supper carving, and you see that there are choir pews here. This is where the choir sat, looking inward, and they were kind of risers, and the console is way back here in the corner. So that was the late 1950s. So between 1901 and 1950, all those changes happened. Some of them were mechanical, some of them were aesthetical. But those are the kinds of changes that happen often with organs. There's things that need to be fixed. There's things that we want to change because of changing tastes. Now in 1964, the organ that we have, the Reuter Organ Company of Kansas, built this instrument. What's interesting is in 1982, there was some additional changes that were made. For one thing, those pews that we saw in a previous picture, they were taken out, and the flat chancel area that we have now is what was installed. The organ console was moved from back there in the corner to where it is now. There was something added, which I will show you down here. It's a little, it's kind of a little computer thingy. And that allows me to have a lot more options of saving memories, saving different settings of sounds. So in the 80s, that technology became available. We had to do a lot of cleaning of the pipes, the mechanism back in the back. That dirt builds up, and that can really affect the workings of the pipes and the mechanisms. And we also had to re-leather the bellows. So that was in 1982. So if you think between 1901 and 1982, there was a lot of changes that we made. And between 1982 and now, there's more changes that need to be done. Now, some of those are mechanical things. So there is a stop here. Now, of course, I try to cover this up, but if I play, there's a pitch that it doesn't sound, and that's because of some mechanical things that aren't functioning back there in the back. That's one of the things that we need to fix. More things like that will start to go wrong as the longer we go along. There's a really loud reed in the pedal that's really hard to tune and is really irregular sounding now. So if you listen to this, some of those pitches are louder, some of them are a little out of tune, and that's the kind of thing that we can't really fix anymore. We kind of need to replace some of those pipes. There's also a few things that tastes have changed since 1965, and while this stop here was kind of all the rage in the 60s, now when I play it for my colleagues, they all roll their eyes, and one of them compared it to the sound of blowing across a Coke bottle. And I'd really love to have a more lyrical, full-bodied flute sound if we're doing work, and there's just a little extra money that we can spend for a couple things like that, right? We were able to get rid of the stenciling and put it back on. So these are the kinds of things that organists, if we're in there tweaking some things, sometimes we have a few little things we want to change. I also wanted to talk about the importance of the organ and music at Hope Church. I hear all the time that when there are new member classes, one of the things that's mentioned very frequently is people want to join Hope Church, or they're attracted to being here because of the music. The music is a huge part of who we are and what draws people here. If you think about all the ways the organ is used in one service, there's the prelude and the postlude music, there's the supporting of congregational singing, hymn singing, there's the responses, there's the organ with the choir, organ with instruments. You can also imagine things like funerals and weddings. They almost always want to use the funeral. And then the ways that we reach out to the community, organ concerts, tulip time concerts, services like Community Good Friday services. These are ways that the public is drawn in, and the organ is always a huge part of that. If you think about the music in a lot of churches in Holland, I think we're really unique in the fact that we love traditional hymnody, that we have the organ playing in a choir. And these are all things the organ makes possible. And an organ is a complex instrument, right? We can't expect it to keep chugging along without some regular maintenance, just like we would expect that with our cars. And so I'm really hopeful that you all can see the importance and the necessity of some of the things that we're talking about here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Okay. Well, I don't know about you, but I am so grateful to have Rhonda here as our music director. and
Hi,
organist.
this is
She's just
Rhonda. I'm coming to
extraordinary.
you live from the organ here at Hope Church,
Oh.
and I want to talk a little
And she wants to
about
tell us
future.
again.
And I'm using,
And also, thank you, Judy, for the research that you've done to give us that history of this organ. I mean, how wonderful. So, well, I'd like to talk about Organ Basics 101. And you've all are pretty familiar with our organ, I think, right? You've seen the pipes, and if you've been up onto the chancel, you've been able to see the console. And so it's pretty extraordinary. You can see about 52 pipes there from the sanctuary. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this organ and how it works. First thing I want to talk about is the console. Okay, and you can see it's got 3 different keyboards or manuals, a bunch of pedals, a bunch of stops, switches, pistons, all sorts of other buttons that can be pushed to obtain different sounds and so forth. But one thing I'd like to talk about is there are 4 different divisions on this organ, okay? The main one is called the grate, and that is the middle keyboard on the organ. And also there's a choir keyboard and a swell keyboard, or division. And then there's the pedals, okay? And each of these divisions can obtain different sounds. And the pipes that are up here, there are 2 different kinds of pipes. One is called a flue pipe, which is basically a hollow tube with a hole in it. And another one is called a reed pipe, which has a metal thing and that vibrates as the air is coming through and sends that vibration up through the tubes. And about 80% of the pipes in typical organs are flue pipes. Yeah, and there are a lot of different kinds of pipes. Look at the flue pipes here and the reed pipes, and you can see that, for example, a principal pipe here made out of metal, and these are a stopped wooden pipe here. Okay, a lot of different types of sounds that can be generated by the organ. And I like to think of the organ almost like an orchestra. I mean, you have access to all these different sounds, flutes, trumpets, oboes, and lots of different stuff. Now, I want to introduce you to a rank. So a rank is a set of pipes producing the same timbre per note. And it's typically 5 octaves or 61 notes. So this principal pipe here typically has 61 different notes to it, making one rank from high to low. Same with this stopped wood pipe here, 61 different notes. And if you can believe it, Hope Church has 42 ranks and 2,399 pipes back there. Although you can see about 50 some of those, most of them you don't see and probably had no idea they were there. Okay? So 42 different sounds that Rhonda can access, and then she can access those in combination with each other as well. Okay? So we talked about the 4 different divisions here, but if you look at how the pipes are arranged here at Hope Church, the ones that you see up front are mostly the pedal division, but you also have the grate division here in the middle, and the choir division on the left, and the swell division on the right. So I'm going to take you a tour to back behind the scenes and see what those pipes look like. So we're going to start with the grate pipes. And the grate pipes are actually back behind those, the larger pipes that you see, and is open to that quadrosphere that just fills our sanctuary as that plays. So those are the main pipes that Rhonda is playing, called the grate pipes. And if we go back into the chamber, we find there are 671 pipes, and these are all the different ranks that are available to Rhonda to play. And here's just a little video of that. Now, I don't know if you can see, but some of those pipes are teeny, tiny, tiny, like a little nail or a little end of a pencil. And there's a
Higher pitch? Tiny?
yeah, tiny is much higher pitch, yes. So these are the grate pipes, and if you look carefully, you'll see that there are different kinds of pipe. This is open-ended, these are closed, these have a little tube up on the top. And as you go through the tour here of the different pipes, try to see if you can identify different types of pipes that might be in the organ, okay? Okay, the next is the swell pipes, the swell division. And I don't know if you can see, but it's on the right side here, but I don't know if you can see, but it's in a closed box. Everything is closed. Unlike the grate, which is open to everything, the swell is in a closed box, and there are louvers here that Rhonda has control over with a pedal. So those louvers open and close, so she can control the dynamic levels or the volume of those ranks compared to the grate division. This has 757 pipes of all these different kinds here, and if we do Organ Basics 201, I can explain what these all mean, but I don't know. So trust me, they're good salads. So as I'm taking this video, you might notice some shakiness because I'm holding on for dear life while I got this camera out here. Many of the pipes are below this wooden bench or this wooden walkway here. You can't see, but they're there. And if I were sound coming out of this area, I would go through the louvers, you can see, and into the sanctuary. It is pretty cool. It's kind of cool to be up there, although I do not recommend it. I mean, it's actually pretty dangerous up there. And there's these little thin walkways to walk on, and it's a little scary. But so I'm happy to be able to make these videos for you. The other part is the choir section over on the left. Again, that's in a closed box with the louvers, and you can see the louvers here. It has 659 pipes of lots of different kinds here. You can see these are all metal pipes. Most of them are open-ended. And if we move further back, more metal pipes, but you can start to see now the wooden stop pipes here. And the lower notes on that rank up here. So the back of that has these nice wooden pipes available. Then finally is the pedals, which has 325 pipes. Lots of different sounds coming out of there. You can see these are the painted ones that we see from the sanctuary, okay? Just painted on the visible part of it. Some pipes that you can't see. No, these up here are painted, you can see that. Some you can't see. Other pipes down below. And these are reed pipes, actually. So we actually have a lot of pipes here creating a lot of different sounds. And this is the overall map from choir to grate to swell and pedals and all the different sounds available. Now sometimes you might see Rhonda going from the organ over to the piano, back to the organ, right? And when she sits down at the piano, she has one sound available. She goes back to the organ, it's a completely different instrument. It is an entire orchestra. As you can see, she has access to so many different sounds. And I'm imagining that when Rhonda is preparing for a service, for Lent or whatever service she's preparing for, she's asking herself, okay, what piece of music would be most appropriate for this particular day or service, right? She's got to think through that and then select that. Then she's got to go through and decide, okay, for that piece, which of these different sounds on each of these divisions is the most appropriate for this piece. Then she's got to make access to all those sounds readily available when she needs it from the previous song, from the last song, and even changes during a piece she'll have to manage. She's got to plot all that out too. And if you've ever had the luxury to see Rhonda performing, I know if you watch on YouTube a Sunday service, you can see her hands going all over 3 different manuals, right? Both of her feet are flying across the pedals. She may also be changing the stops and changing some of the controls as she's changing the sheet music, okay? There is a lot going on, and I just developed a whole new respect for what Rhonda does as I've gone through this organ process. It's quite amazing. But yeah, it's like having a whole orchestra at your fingertips, and she has to think like that and think through that as she prepares the service to make it the most beautiful piece that she can make for us as we're in the sanctuary. So there you have it. You have the input, which is the console, and the output, which is the pipes, which we just talked about. But there's actually something between those two that we need to talk about as well. Okay, so if you open up the console, the back of it, you can see here's the console, the keyboards. If you open up the back, you're going to find a bunch of electronics. Okay, these are old legacy things here, some old solenoids and things like that. But in the year 2000, we put in some electronics that collect all the data and information from all the different stops and the notes and pedals that are being played, and sends that back behind, back in the chamber or the organ room, and it connects with all this electronic stuff here, which then sends the signal to other places in the organ. Did you know this existed? No. Yeah, okay. So now we have an organ sending it to this electronic unit, which sends it back to the back room, which then connects to the pipes. But since this is not an electronic organ, it needs something else. It needs air, right? So like a tuba, you got to put air in, or a flute or a trumpet, it requires air. So how do we get that air in there? Well, in the old days, they used to pump bellows, you know. There's another one here, pumping with the feet. In our basement, we use this foot kind here. We have a person down there during the service. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We used to, did we? We probably did, yeah. We probably had someone. But we actually have this nice motor and blower there to create the pressure here. This is the blower, the motor and the blower. And it inflates this bellows up here to create pressure that it then sends up the tube upstairs. Okay? So this is a very key part of this, developing this air pressure and sending it up to the air tube. All right, now I'm going to take you to a little tour. Here's the sanctuary door here, which you're familiar with. And if we start there, and there's a door on the side of the aisle there that takes you into the back room. This place is really fun, by the way. Okay. Okay, here's another view of it as you just step into the door of that room. And I would advise you to never go in there. It's really, it's not a safe place. You can hit your head, damage yourself. You can fall off stuff. And you can also detune the organ if you do something you're not supposed to do, which I almost did. That's how I found out. So, but you can see, here's a first level here. Here's a second level, right? Now it's going up to a whole third level of stuff back there. And a lot of this is distributing the air to different parts of the organ, but there's a lot of other activity going on as well. Here's just another view of it. This is kind of the mid-level. Isn't that crazy? Another picture. You can see some other bellows up here. Trevor, what are those for?
Concussion bellows, they provide just a little extra air cushion.
Okay, yeah. And there's tremolo bellows and lots of other different kinds of things that you would learn in the Organ Basics 201 or 301, but not today. And just another view, and this is really, really important. As we're looking up, we're looking at something called the wind chest, which some call really the heart of the organ, okay? And this is where everything comes together and tells the pipe to either play that note or don't play it, okay? And the wind chest is here, and we couldn't open them up for this discussion, but I know that Trevor's going to talk more about that because from a maintenance point of view, it's critical. But in general, what happens, the pipes are set in a hole in the wind chest, and rank by rank, Rhonda can activate like the principal or a trumpet or something. When she activates, all the notes of that rank are available to play, and then when she hits a particular note, that will activate that pipe to play. Another way to look at it is like this. Here's all the different ranks, and if she activates the principal 8, all the notes in that rank will be available, and then when she hits a C note, that C pipe will then play. And all that takes place in that wind chest that we're talking about. And then Rhonda can do some amazing things. She can play more than one rank. Here, there's 3 different ranks playing. This one has multiple pipes. And she can play more than one note. So in this particular case, there's 20 different pipes playing at the same time. So basically the input starts here with the console, right? You've got this air supply providing air to the wind chest. You've got electrical link heading to the wind chest, which will then activate which notes she plays, and then to the 2,399 pipes that she has access to. So yeah, it's kind of I mean, how many of you are surprised to see this, by the way? Yeah, yeah. It really is ingenious. It's remarkable. It's just a beautiful, beautiful instrument, and it does need attention. And I know that last year, 2022, we replaced the leathering up here because it was falling apart and it was about to shut the organ down. There's been a lot of other attention that's been given to the organ throughout the years, so as you might expect. But it's in really good shape. It's a beautiful organ. It was made by Reuters Organ Company in 1965, as Rhonda mentioned. And I think it was the 1,508th organ that they built. And so it's 58 years old and has served us very, very well for a long, long time. So now I'm going to introduce Trevor again. So Trevor's going to talk a little bit about some of the maintenance activities that we're looking at for this organ.
All right, good morning. Get my visual aids here. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right. So to recap on the goals that Dan mentioned at the beginning, we'd like to get the organ ready for another 50 years of reliable service. That's kind of a general major organ rebuild timeline, about every 50 years, which is pretty good considering a car would never make it that long, being used many times a week. An estimate we had a number of hours this organ's been played since it was built is probably somewhere in the 20,000 to 50,000 hours. And when you think about it, each pipe, it's 2,400 pipes, each one has one of these leather pouches and valves underneath it. And these are in constant motion when the organ's being played. And as leather gets old, we will see what happens to it. So we'll start at the console, where Dan started. It gets a lot of wear and tear on it, being played many hours a week. The keyboards, they have felt bushings and bumpers. As they get played more and more, the felt compresses. It gets harder, it gets noisier, and the key depth gets deeper. It just becomes harder for the organist to play. There are little leather nuts that set the height of the keys. Those, again, are leather, natural material. They break down, they get soft, and they don't stay in place anymore. The key tops, thankfully, ours are in very good condition here, so you don't really need to do anything with those. And electrical contacts, those, there's under each key are many electrical fingers, silver-plated fingers, and after thousands and thousands of contacts, those get bent, sometimes they wear out. A lot of times back in the old days, before these new computerized systems, there was a lot of current. Every time you pressed the key, it would actually fire an electromagnet. But now it's sending a little computer signal, so it doesn't get as heavy as a burn as it would with the spark you'd have back in the day. So the electrical contacts actually don't benefit from these newer systems, but they do provide us a lot of other helpful accessories. The pedal board, very similar to the keyboards, except they get a lot heavier use because it's with the feet. They have much heavier felt bushings and bumpers, but again, they still wear and compress. The key tops, imagine feet going across those for years and years. They do wear out. It's maple wood. Those will likely end up needing to be replaced in this project. It's a typical 50-year wear item. Even with proper leather organ shoes, they still wear out. And again, same electrical contacts. And then on the draw knob side, the stops, each draw knob activates a stop on the organ. Those are no longer, the model we have in this pipe organ are no longer manufactured or supported. So if one fails, it's not a good day. And then the current control system in the console is no longer supported. The one in the chamber part of it is still supported. So the plan, what we're looking at is to replace the console portion and keep the existing in the chamber because the manufacturer plans to support that for many years to come. All right, we'll get to the leather here. The leather is key to the mechanics of the pipe organ. It's what makes everything work mechanically in those wind chests that Dan was talking about. This is a picture from one of the wind chests in this organ. This is one of the under the big wood pipes in one of Dan's earlier pictures. You can see these pouches, but you can see that they look like they're starting to pucker a little bit. And that's what happens as leather starts to age. It becomes brittle. It starts to look like this. I can take this and it tears like paper. There's not much to it. Compared to this new leather that is really strong. It would take a lot of force to try to tear this. But the leather is in many places, in the valves on the top here, and the leather nuts in the console, and also in a lot of the mechanics in the wind chest. These pouches, pitmans, which are little check valves, those are what decide when you pull a stop and play a note, which ranks play and which ones don't. They're just a little leather disc that'll jump up and down in the air pressure very quickly. Expression motors, those are what open and close those expression shades, those louvers that Dan pointed out. The motors that move those are pneumatic that run on the same pressure that plays the pipes. And right now the swell motor does not let the shades close all the way, so we don't have the full expressive capabilities that we could of this organ if it were working properly. And then also in the reservoirs, Dan showed a little picture of that. The one in the basement blower room was very short of failing last year, so we had that re-leathered. But all the other ones in the organ are very close to needing to be re-leathered as well, because the leather is very brittle. You could almost rub the leather off with your finger. It's that brittle. And it's kind of amazing that all this happens on about 3.5 inches of water column, which comes out to about 1% of the pressure that would be in your car tire. It seems like very little, but spread over an area, it can provide quite a bit of energy. And then the pipes. We can see this is the pipe that, if you look in the front, you can see has a little white tie around it. I was up in the organ one time and noticed that one was very close to falling forward because of that damaged hook. So we kind of did a quick fix just to make sure it was secure a couple of years ago. But these pipes, these are the pedal pipes that Rhonda was talking about that don't sound good. They have a lot of damage, and there's and some abuse from trying some fixes over the years that didn't really work the way that they were supposed to. So, as Dan mentioned, cleaning the pipes, that helps out the way they sound and just makes it a nicer place to work in there. And also metal fatigue. The pipes are made out of tin and lead for the most part, a very soft alloy, and over time, gravity does the number on them, and they need little adjustments. And then, as you can see, some of the pipes and racking are damaged, and also a little bit of damage that was mostly fixed from the raccoons. All right, and I'm happy to share any of these to hand out. Anyone can see them after this.
Thank you, Trevor. And if I haven't said it before, I can't tell you how grateful I am to have Trevor as part of this team. He's just been extraordinary, so thank you. Okay, actually last slide here, but I want to talk about our renovation project. So our team, we talked about earlier, Rhonda, Paul, Trevor, Gordon, and myself, we evaluated 3 different organs for this restoration project. The first one of these is Reuters, who built the organ. And we were working with them in August and September, and we're about to get the proposal in when they went out of business. And so we were really disappointed that we couldn't use them, as they were our primary choice. We also met with a company called Schantz, very, very good company, and a company called Buzard. And we were very impressed with the people from Buzard. I know, Paul, you were very impressed with them, Trevor, Rhonda. We all just really, really liked this company a lot. The people in it, the talent in it, their experience, and they were $200,000 less expensive than Schantz, and we liked that as well. So, but really, I think we have just a lot of confidence in this team at Buzard. They came out here for a day, 2 people did, went through our organ in great detail, evaluated it, and then came back and gave us their proposal of what they think we need to be doing, okay? The cost for the Buzard proposal is about $350,000. And that's about $280,000 base, and then there's some options and stuff, which we're going to be doing some of those as well. But our final target price is $350,000 for that. The renovation schedule is that in April of next year, 2024, we would shut down that organ for 5 to 6 months. They would pack it up and take it to their plant in Illinois, and they would do all the restoration. So for 6 months, you will see no pipes in that place, and as we're doing the renovation. So what's going to happen when we don't have an organ here? Well, the good news is we have Rhonda, who's our music director, and super creative, and I'm just confident that we're going to continue to have some very, very beautiful and interesting music that she prepares during that downtime. So I'm excited about that too. So next year, 2024, right after Easter, we're going to get working on this thing and make it happen. So there's a couple things we need to do as a team, our organ team. By June 15th, we need to finalize the scope of work, exactly which options we're going to be doing, and there's some complications in there we need to talk through. And then work on the contractual agreement. And we've got Andy Mulder, who's a member here, who is a lawyer. He's helping us with the language and stuff like that to get that done. So we're excited. I'm excited about this whole organ project. You know, I myself am an engineer and music guy, so I really, it's really a buzz for me to work on this thing. It's a lot of fun. And I will say the more I learn, the dumber I get, and that is really true on this case. It's complex, it's interesting, it's fascinating, it's ingenious, it's really, really fun. And I know it's just such an important part of who we are at Hope Church, and I look forward to making this happen. So, okay, well, thank you for listening, and, thank you. I hope this is very helpful, and I hope you've learned a lot, and I'd like to open it up for any questions that you might have for any of us.
I have a question about the wood pipes. Is there a particular kind of wood that resonates best for this, or are there a variety of different woods used?
Quite a variety of different woods. Most desirable is a wood that's stable. I've seen some mahogany pipes that have totally cracked and fallen apart, but poplar, oak, old growth pine, those are all very common, stable woods.
Right here. David.
Dan, being out of the woods guy, being a sailor, thinking about leather technology, I remember canvas sails, but leather reminds me too much of canvas, and wondering if technology has grown.
That's a very good question. I know Trevor has an answer to that because we've asked him that.
So yes, well, yes and no. There are different tanning processes over the years. There's been vegetable tan, there's been chrome tanned. Back in the early 1900s, there was mercury tanned, which was phenomenal leather. I still find it in Oregon, it's 100 years old, it's still perfect. But it's mercury tanned and it can't be produced. But these are vegetable tanned, these kind of brown colored, and then this one in the middle is chrome tanned, which is today's standard is chrome tanned. There was an experiment, a product called Perflex that came out of the Vietnam War. It failed after about 3 years. It was kind of a latex-like material, and it broke down. And there have been a few attempts at finding a replacement material, and leather has always, for hundreds of years, been the superior material.
I think I'm next. So I'm Joyce Tusink, and one question, oh dear, as things are flying out of my head. One is the capital campaign, the money issue of it. This isn't a special organ fund, it's wrapped into the capital campaign. Is that my understanding?
Yes,
that
it is.
correct?
This is all part of
Okay,
that.
so
Yes.
it's all part of that.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that answers that question. And then if we do all this renovation, are we just going to be like superseding Third Reformed Church's organ? Just check.
That's our plan.
Nykirk will be pleased.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm Dan Griswold, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the good work, excellent work, your team, and I affirm that. I'm just wanting to get into your reflections on what to do and what not to do, and this may be in the area of options, or it might be going beyond options. But I'm wondering if the team considered something that I've seen at other churches around that have done organ renovation projects, and that is the ability to have the console placed in different locations. So one thing that we know from the Tulip Time concerts, for instance, is that people would love to see Rhonda's hands and feet go all over the place, but we have to do the Rhonda cam. And some churches have the ability for the console to be located so that the organist's back is to the sanctuary and people can see the keys. So I'm wondering if there was that kind of reflection on, do we want to try to do a movable console? And recall from the history that you gave is that the console has been in different locations in the chancel. And maybe with that, getting to Joyce's point, was there any discussion of either adding a rank or expanding any existing ranks with additional pipes?
Okay, I'll take the first part of that question, and Trevor, would you answer the second on the pipes? Okay. And you may all know in the old days, there was mechanical linkage between the organ and the wind chest, with rods and levers and things like that. Now we have electronic cable going through it. So that gives us the ability, actually, to your point, we could move that console anywhere we want. In fact, you could probably even do, I don't know if they have it like Bluetooth or something these days, I don't know. But certainly you could do it on a single cable, and I've seen churches in the area that have that. We haven't discussed that in our meetings, but I'll bring that up, because we would have the ability to do that now. It would be really, really easy. If that's something that the church wanted to do, we could easily do that. So I will bring that up with our organ meeting, and we can discuss that further, Dan. As for the pipes,
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to what Dan said, that position there where the console is, sunken down, is a great place for conducting the choir and having a line of sight. So that's the reason it's there. And as Dan said, in theory, it could go anywhere. It could go in multiple places, but we'd have to talk about the practicality of that. As far as the pipes, as you could see in Dan's video, there is really no additional room up there to add a whole lot. We're hoping to make some changes to make some pipes we already have available to use in other places on the instrument, and to change out a few voices, revoice a few. But as far as adding to the organ without making a lot of much more expensive modifications to the layout, it would be relatively difficult to make additions.
Yeah, one of the other challenges that we faced there too was the budget. And I know, if we really wanted to push it, we might be able to find space or make space at some cost that right now we don't think we can afford. So, yes.
Paul Elzinga. A couple things. First of all, you didn't mention the cost of replacing this organ, and I think that I remember a number of like $2 million. Is that what I recall is correct?
Yeah, $1,875,000. Still a huge number. Yeah.
So that's not what we paid for it originally, obviously.
Yeah.
The other thing is that organ now is set down in a pit almost. It's about a foot below the floor level, so raising it up out of there would be a possibility now. I think it's a good one. The only other thing that I have told this story more than once, that blower room downstairs is interesting. There's a door to that room which has the words on it, the Tavern Club. And I happen to know that my dad was involved in putting that organ where it is now and building that room. And he and a number of other people from Hope Church were members of the Tavern Club and the Warm Friend Hotel. And that Tavern Club got remodeled, and that is one of the doors that came out of that remodel in 1965.
I love it. I love it.
And I believe Mert DeVelder probably had something to do with that as well, my dad.
And Paul, thank you so much for your contribution to this whole organ project. It's so invaluable. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, sorry.
Dave Myers, this has been a fascinating presentation. I mean, I'm just blown away, really. And Trevor, I really appreciate your contribution to this. We're so fortunate to have somebody with your expertise available. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to this expertise. And are you local? And I'm fascinated by you.
All right. Well, I'll try to make this as quick as I can, but in high school, picked up a pipe organ out of Canada that it was in pieces, put it together in my dad's basement, and that kind of sparked an interest for me, and I started, this is in Battle Creek, I started kind of helping out different organ builders in the area with projects and learning that way, and ended up going to Central Michigan University, majoring in construction management and a minor in music, and then went to work for Buzard Organ Builders, which it's kind of a coincidence that they ended up here, but about 5 years ago I moved back up to Holland and working at Fog Filler as a mechanical engineer, but still my passion is pipe organs. And so yeah, you'll find me in the summer on my sailboat with my family or, or tinkering with projects around the house. That's my quick background here. But yes, I live right up on Lakewood. I'm very local.
Right here.
Kristen Gray. So we've been talking about the organ. I have a question about the organist. During the months that the organ will be out of commission, do we have budget and support for Rhonda to use another instrument?
I'll answer that. I have no idea. We've never.
It just seems like that's,
Are you
for
talking about-
5 months, I think, do we have a place where she can do with pedals and 3 ranks and, right, so that her practice is ongoing? Okay, so I'm hearing she's on the faculty at Calvin, so she'd have access there. Thank you.
Not to try to compare ourselves with anyone else, but I'm just curious, what are the really good organs in Holland? And Trevor, you're probably the one who might know this.
Well, there are a lot of organs in Holland. We have a lot of churches here. Try off the top of my head, there's a new Posse organ at the Episcopal Church, a very fine instrument. Again, smaller than this one. There's
Second Reformed Church in Zealand.
yes, there's a slightly smaller but very similar organ to this one, also a Reuter, but about 10 years newer. They rebuilt that a few years back. There's, of course, the organs on Hope College's campus. They have quite a few, including the two in the chapel. But there are quite a few around, some in use more than others. But there's a whole, if you go to pipeorgandatabase.org, you can search Holland, Michigan, and see the whole list.
Thanks. See a couple hands going up.
Dan again, and I want to pick up on something Kristen said, that maybe this is exactly what she is intending, but I think it fits. We're maintaining an organ to serve as well for another 50 years. And Kristen mentioned caring for our organist. So maybe we ought to be thinking as well about encouraging, nurturing young people to be organists, which is certainly part of Rhonda's passion, but maybe institutionally we can put some thought to that as well.
Yeah, great idea.
I got it. Bob Thoreau, I have a somewhat not serious question. Could you estimate how many rows back we have to be after you do the renovation so that our hair isn't getting blown back by the...
We want you right up front, man. Are you kidding?
Barbara Timmer, I just wanted to say I wish my parents were here, particularly my mother, to have heard this presentation. She loved playing the organ, but I remember when she was still alive and Rhonda was first here. And my parents, we were the roast pastor kind of people. You know, every Sunday it was like, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of this, that? And my mother's was always, it was her opinion about the music. And after she'd heard Rhonda a couple of times, because I waited, and I asked her, and I said, so what do you think? And my mother said, she's good. And I mean, that was like very, and I've been so thankful that we have had this emphasis on music. And I just know that she would like to stand up and say, this is just going to be great. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Barbara.
Elizabeth Vanderbilt, I have a novice question, just to level set my expectations, because I have learned more about an organ in the last hour than I ever knew before. Am I going to be able to hear, as someone who's not particularly musically oriented but really loves the postlude, am I going to be able to hear a difference when this organ is redone, or am I just going to have the satisfaction of knowing it's better?
That's still open to some of the options we're exploring for different tonal changes to the organ. Rhonda's been really creative right now covering up some of the mechanical issues that are going on and issues with some of the pipes not speaking properly. So she'll be able to use those to their full potential again and not have to work around. Organists are very good at making an organ that has mechanical problems sound good. It's kind of open right now until we clearly define the scope of the project.
I think a lot of the options we're talking about are tonal related, and so the jury's still out on that one. Good question.
Dan, I noticed that in one of those pictures, I thought I saw a fan sitting on the floor. Is that accurate?
Yeah, down in the back of the chamber there, yes.
Yeah. It didn't look like it was really part of the system. And I was wondering, after we put in the air conditioning a decade or more ago, how that affected things, and does it have its own climate control space? Also, I've been in the basement, I've been in the back there, so I know that fan's been there for decades. And the basement is really dirty, and I'm assuming the air comes from the sanctuary and goes down and back up. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it does not have its own HVAC system. It's sharing the sanctuary air. That's true.
Is that something that would make it last longer?
Trevor, I think we've had these discussions too. So.
Yeah, it's a nice thing about the. Oh, do you have something to add, Paul?
Well, I could just mention that in the past, there's been a lot of dirt in the basement. And the air for the organ has been coming from the basement in the past. And that's going to be changed and is in the process of being changed. We will be using air from the sanctuary, which will be the filtered air for feeding the organ from now on, as soon as this thing gets converted. So that's a very good point, though. And the other thing we might mention is the organ chamber now is sprinkled. So we have protection in case of a fire that is a good thing and a bad thing, really. But it's a complicated thing as far as how we protect the chamber and protect the organ.
One thing additional to relate to that, one of the great things about this organ is that it's pretty much all on one level, which means it stays at everything moves together temperature-wise. In stacked organs, it becomes a very difficult tuning situation. So we're very fortunate here that even if the temperature varies, everything moves together. You don't have a division up here that's 90 degrees and one down here that's 65.
And just one last comment, there's two things back there that didn't belong there originally. One was the fan and the other one's the raccoon trap. I'm serious.
The other thing that I should have mentioned is that the basement is now clean as a result of the new air conditioning equipment in the basement. The basement has been totally cleaned out, and a lot of the junk down there has gone to the trash heap. So it's much better now than it ever was before.
One more question, and then we'll have to close it, I think. Jane?
This is a silly comment. I just wondered when Rhonda was going to hand out the kazoos for the kazoo organ.
Yeah, there you go. A very good question. I just want to thank all of you for participating today, and I really appreciate, I mean, this is your organ, this is our organ, and I really appreciate your interest in it and your questions.
Okay, and thank you, Dan and Trevor, for giving our presentation today.
Thank you.
Come back next week. We have our Easter brunch. Bring food to share, I believe. Read the bulletin or your emails to get the details about when and what and where. Go ahead. See you next week.